There are very few things that make Foxy and Amy more excited than hearing me open the fridge. Actually, that's not quite true. There's one thing that gets even more attention. The moment I start warming up a little pot of bone broth. The girls come running into the kitchen and sit next to me waiting very impatiently as if they've just heard the world's most exciting dinner bell. And to be fair, I can understand why. It smells amazing. Today I want to show you why bone broth has become part of our routine, how I make it at home, what we know about its potential health benefits, and just as importantly, what it can't do. Because like many things in nutrition, there's plenty of good information online, but there's also a lot of hype. Long before commercial dog food existed, dogs didn't eat perfectly balanced pellets from a bag. They lived alongside people and often ate leftovers from family meals, scraps of meat, connective tissue, organs, and bones. Whenever people made soups or stews, bones were often simmered for hours to extract every last bit of flavor. Nothing was wasted. Bone broth wasn't invented as a health supplement. It was simply good housekeeping. Across many cultures, people have been making bone broth for centuries. Long simmering broths have been part of traditional cooking for generations for either soups or stock. And many of our grandparents probably made something very similar without giving it a second thought. Only recently has bone broth become fashionable again. So what exactly is bone broth? It's simply bones, cartilage, and any leftover meat simmering gently in water for many hours. During that time, some collagen from the connective tissue breaks down into gelatin, giving the broth that lovely jelly-like consistency once it's cooled. Small amounts of minerals and amino acids also end up in the liquid, and it tastes wonderful. Now, before we get into the health benefits, let's make some. Today I'm using a chicken carcass left over from a roast dinner. This roast was so delicious. I made it in a Jamie Oliver style. Lemon inside the chicken, butter with rosemary under the skin to make that meat really juicy. Cut the legs open so all the meat cooks evenly. I added carrots and celery at the bottom. As I was feeding the dogs some roast chicken too, I made an extra batch and added some sweet potato. The offals that come with the chicken, like the chicken liver, get put in a separate dish and the girls eat that once it's cooked. Now it's time to wait for the oven to do its magic. The girls lie patiently, not taking their eyes off the oven. They love to watch and enjoy the good kitchen smells. Then comes the moment the girls have been waiting for. The roast is finally cooked. I love the buttery sauce that sticks to the bottom. The meat was perfectly juicy and the sweet potatoes crisp on the outside and soft in the middle. I carved the chicken. I eat before the girls, but I prepared a roast meal for the girls in their bowls so it could cool down while I ate. They got a mix of meat, skin, offal, and a carrot. The girls were excited to say the least. Finally, it was time for a taste test. The girls wait before being allowed to eat. The self-control was impeccable, and then in seconds the food was gone. Foxy always inhales her food and finishes first. Amy will then do a bowl inspection, just in case something was left over. They are respectful of each other's bowls and let each other finish before switching bowls. Once we munched the delicious roast dinner, all the leftovers was used to make the broth. One of the things I like most about making bone broth is that nothing goes to waste. Into the slow cooker it all goes. I added some dog-safe vegetables. I used celery and some carrots. Then goes in the bay leaves, salt and pepper. I add enough water to cover the bones by about 2 centimeters. A splash of apple cider vinegar. Not because it's magic, but because the mild acidity helps release some minerals during cooking. Nothing complicated. No onions, no garlic, as this is toxic to dogs. Those are ingredients I'd always leave out if I'm making broth for the girls. Then the lid goes on. High heat initially for the first hour until the temperature has been reached, and then low heat for 12 hours overnight. If using bigger beef bones, you might need 16 to 24 hours. That's it. I like to leave it overnight and then I can enjoy the first drink after breakfast. So here is the next day. The kitchen smells incredible. Once everything has cooled slightly, I strain out the liquid and discard the cooked bones and the veg. This part is really important. Never give cooked bones to dogs. Cooking makes bones brittle and they can splinter, creating a real risk of choking or injury to the digestive tract. The leftover broth goes into a container and into the fridge. By the following morning, it usually looks like jelly. That's exactly what I want to see. So why do I give it to the gals? The biggest reason is actually very simple. They love it. It is full of minerals and it's natural. No preservatives or sugar. Sometimes I pour a little over their food. Sometimes they get the broth pure. It's also a lovely way to encourage some extra fluid intake, particularly if your dog isn't a big drinker. Beyond that, bone broth contains gelatin, collagen-derived peptides, and amino acids such as glycine and proline. These are normal components of connective tissue and play roles throughout the body. Many believe bone broth supports joint health, skin health, and digestion, and those ideas are biologically plausible. But remember, it is not a protein replacement. For me, it's best viewed as a nutritious addition to an already balanced diet rather than a treatment or a cure. One question I hear quite often is whether bone broth is a good source of protein. The answer is not really. This surprised me when I first looked into it. Bone broth contains some protein, mainly in the form of gelatin, but the amount is relatively small compared to meat, fish, or eggs. It's also missing adequate amounts of some essential amino acids that dogs need. So, although bone broth can contribute a little protein, it should never replace your dog's main protein source. Think of it as a supplement to a balanced diet, not the foundation of one. The girls still get their normal balanced raw meals every day. Bone broth is simply an extra. The same applies to us. People sometimes describe bone broth as a protein drink. I wouldn't. If you're trying to increase your protein intake, a chicken breast or some Greek yogurt contains far more high quality protein. Bone broth has its place, but it's not a substitute for proper protein-rich foods. Another thing I like about bone broth is that it's inexpensive. One leftover chicken carcass that many people would throw away can produce liters of broth. It's a nice reminder that nutritious food doesn't always have to be expensive. Sometimes the simplest recipes are the ones that have stood the test of time. I remember my grandmother making this when I was small. Of course, bone broth isn't suitable for every situation. If your dog has a medical condition requiring a specialist diet such as certain kidney or liver diseases, always speak to your veterinarian before making dietary changes. And if you're buying ready-made bone broth, always check the ingredients carefully. Many products made for people contain onions, garlic, or large amounts of salt, none of which I'd want in the girls' bowl. By the time I'd finished filming today, there was one final job left, the official taste test. I poured a little warm bone broth into Foxy and Amy's bowls. Let it cool, all their excitement. I don't think I've ever seen two Dachshunds appear quite so quickly. Hours of having to endure those amazing smells finally paid off. Apparently 12 hours in the slow cooker gets the official Foxy and Amy seal of approval. I suppose that's the only real review that really matters. Sometimes we overcomplicate nutrition. We start chasing miracle ingredients or the latest trends. But good nutrition usually comes back to the same simple principles: a balanced diet, good quality ingredients, maintaining a healthy body weight, regular exercise, and a few enjoyable extras that fit naturally into everyday life. For us, bone broth is one of those extras. It's easy to make, the girls absolutely love it, and it's become another small part of our daily routine. I'd love to know, do you make bone broth for your dog? If you do, what's your favorite recipe? Leave it in the comments because I'm always interested to hear what works for others. Thank you so much for spending a little time with Foxy, Amy and me today. We'll see you in the next adventure.